A 49-year-old lawyer stands on a stage in Illinois watching election results come in. He's running for the United States Senate. He spent months campaigning across the state, giving speeches, debating his opponent. He's poured everything into this race. The results come in. He lost. Again. This is not the first time Abraham Lincoln has lost an election. It's not even the second or third. By 1858, Abraham Lincoln has lost 8 major elections. He's failed in business twice, going bankrupt both times. He suffered a nervous breakdown so severe that his friends had to take away sharp objects because they feared he might harm himself. He's been rejected, humiliated, and defeated more times than most people could endure. But Lincoln doesn't quit. 2 years later, in 1860, Abraham Lincoln will run for President of the United States. Against all odds, he'll win. He'll lead the country through its darkest period, the Civil War. He'll abolish slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation. And he'll become one of the greatest presidents in American history. All because he refused to accept failure as final. This is the story of how the most defeated man in politics became the man who saved a nation. Let's rewind to 1809. Abraham Lincoln was born in a one-room log cabin in rural Kentucky. His family was desperately poor. His father was a farmer who could barely read. His mother died when Abraham was 9 years old. Abraham had less than 1 year of formal education. But he loved to read. He would borrow books from neighbors and read by candlelight. He taught himself grammar, mathematics, and law. As a young man, Lincoln moved to New Salem, Illinois. He tried to start a general store with a partner. The store failed. His partner died, leaving Lincoln with massive debt. Lincoln spent the next 17 years paying off that debt. He called it his national debt. In 1832, at age 23, Lincoln decided to run for the Illinois state legislature. He lost. It was his first political defeat. In 1833, Lincoln tried business again. He became a partner in another general store. That store also failed. Lincoln was now bankrupt for the second time. In 1835, the woman he loved, Anne Rutledge, died suddenly of typhoid fever. Lincoln fell into a deep depression. Friends said he was so despondent they worried he might take his own life. They removed all knives and razors from his home. Lincoln later described this period as the darkest of his life. But he kept going. In 1836, Lincoln ran for the Illinois state legislature again. This time, he won. It was his first political victory. For the next few years, Lincoln served in the state legislature. He taught himself law by reading legal books. In 1846, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. But his time in Congress was a disaster. Lincoln opposed the Mexican-American War, which was deeply unpopular with his constituents. After just one term, he decided not to run for re-election. He returned to Illinois, convinced his political career was over. He went back to practicing law. For the next several years, Lincoln stayed out of politics. But in 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act reignited the national debate over slavery. Lincoln was morally opposed to slavery. He believed it was wrong and that it needed to be stopped from spreading. So in 1854, Lincoln ran for the U.S. Senate. He lost. In 1856, Lincoln sought the Republican nomination for vice president. He lost. In 1858, Lincoln ran for the U.S. Senate again, this time against Stephen Douglas. Lincoln and Douglas held a series of famous debates across Illinois. The debates made Lincoln nationally known. But he still lost the election. By 1858, Abraham Lincoln had lost 8 major elections. Most people would have given up. Most people would have accepted that politics wasn't for them. But Lincoln didn't quit. In 1860, the Republican Party was looking for a presidential candidate. The frontrunner was William Seward, a well-known senator from New York. Lincoln was considered a long shot. But Lincoln had something Seward didn't: relatability. Lincoln had grown up poor. He'd worked with his hands. He understood ordinary people. At the Republican National Convention in Chicago, Lincoln's team worked tirelessly behind the scenes. They made deals, persuaded delegates, and positioned Lincoln as the compromise candidate. On the third ballot, Lincoln won the nomination. The crowd erupted. Abraham Lincoln, the man who had lost 8 elections, was now the Republican nominee for president. In the general election, Lincoln faced a divided Democratic Party. The Democrats split into northern and southern factions, each running their own candidate. Lincoln won the presidency with less than 40% of the popular vote, but a clear majority in the Electoral College. Abraham Lincoln became the 16th President of the United States. But his challenges were just beginning. Before Lincoln even took office, 7 Southern states seceded from the Union. They formed the Confederate States of America. By April 1861, the country was at war. The Civil War was the bloodiest conflict in American history. Over 600,000 soldiers died. Entire cities were destroyed. Families were torn apart. Lincoln faced immense pressure. Generals questioned his leadership. Politicians called for his resignation. Newspapers attacked him daily. The Union lost battle after battle in the early years of the war. Many people thought Lincoln was failing. But Lincoln never gave up. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all enslaved people in Confederate states were free. It was a bold, controversial move. But it reframed the war. It was no longer just about preserving the Union. It was about ending slavery. In 1864, Lincoln ran for re-election. Many in his own party doubted he could win. The war was dragging on. People were exhausted. But Lincoln won re-election decisively. The Union began to win major battles. In April 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered. The war was over. The Union was preserved. Slavery was abolished. Abraham Lincoln had saved the nation. 5 days later, Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth at Ford's Theater. He died the next morning, but his legacy was secure. Lincoln is remembered as one of the greatest presidents in American history. He preserved the United States. He ended slavery. He proved that a poor boy from a log cabin could rise to the highest office in the land. So what happened? Lincoln lost 8 elections, went bankrupt twice, and suffered a nervous breakdown. But he never saw failure as final. He kept running. He kept trying. Every loss taught Lincoln something. He became a better speaker, a better debater, a better politician. Failure was his education. Lincoln didn't come from wealth or privilege, but he had empathy. He understood struggle. That's what made him a great leader during the nation's darkest hour. When the Civil War tore the country apart, most leaders would have crumbled. But Lincoln had been through so much failure that he knew how to endure. He didn't quit when things got hard. Lincoln's greatest strength wasn't intelligence or charisma. It was resilience. He refused to stay down. Abraham Lincoln lost 8 elections. He went bankrupt twice. He had a nervous breakdown. But he kept going. And in 1860, he became President of the United States. He saved the Union. He ended slavery. He became a legend. Because sometimes the people who fail the most are the ones who change the world.